Dun 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 dun! We did it! We did it! With the help of CommandCast. Thank you very much, CommandCast. It's for showcasing this card on their last Commander Cast underrated cards, whatever episode that they just released. Brought to my attention that they picked NULL CHAMBER. NULL CHAMBER as one of the most underrated cards, which I have been parroting for a long time now. I think it was over a year ago I started investing in NULL CHAMBER. And lo and behold, it is now up to the $8.50 mark. Card Kingdom is out of stock. The rest of the vendors are out of stock. And this card has exploded in value, which is kind of crazy because it literally sees no play in Commander at the moment. It was a good call, though. I've been saying this for a long time about NULL CHAMBER, that it is a very underused, underrated card in Commander, as it is able, it's exactly what you want to do in Commander. It gives you the kind of the politics game where you and one other person name two commanders. Usually I like to name like red or black commanders because they have an awful time trying to deal with NULL CHAMBER. I say that one of my favorite Commander games ever was we had a Skithiryx player as well as a Krenko player, and I asked the other player, hey, you want to shut down these two Cancer commanders? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we shut them down, and Krenko and Skithiryx, basically both of them have a hard time really doing anything without their commander. At least the goblins can, turn their cards sideways, but most Krenko decks these days are built to be utilizing Krenko to making a ton of copies and winning off of something Perforos. But yep, so NULL CHAMBER locked out the game. We were able to stop those two particular commanders with very little ways to actually get rid of this card. So there have been a lot of other fun moments with NULL CHAMBER in my experience with Commander over the years. So anyway, this is kind of cool with NULL CHAMBERs. Thought I'd bring it up. Also just talk a little bit about the state of Magic. It actually seems like we're starting to get out of the kind of the dead days of summer, which is crazy because usually this lasts about till August, and we're already in July, and it seems to be that the bearish market is starting to lift, and we're starting to go towards, again, another bull market, which is just plain insanity because I thought for sure that Magic was on its way into a massive bear market just because of how crazy the amount of cards been printed in the past few years. We have a pretty shambled community right now with, I mean, beyond the drama, just even looking at like the state of like Standard has been for a long time. And now we finally seen like Modern actually settle down, actually have a meta that doesn't change orders or change top decks every 5 seconds like we've seen before. Usually those are good for stale is actually bad for markets. A musical chairs type format like Modern has been is actually really good for markets because people are like, oh, look what the number one deck is. Okay, well, I'll buy those cards, and then another deck comes in, and it just creates a lot of movement in the market. So that is just my little update with NULL CHAMBER. This is one of the big reasons that you should be following me on Twitter or on the Patreon as I give off little financial advices for cards like this. I knew that this card, I think this, yeah, it was. I'll have to find the video where I analyzed all the reserve list cards under $1 and picked this one to be the card that had the most potential out of all the cards that hadn't been bought out up to that point. And so this is clear back here-ish when I started buying them. I bought them between anywhere from 15 cents all the way to 30 cents. I think I went up to $1 at one point and then stopped buying them. Now I'm kind of kicking myself because actually my sell-off was going to be around $3 and can't be more happy with this. We've actually sold quite a few of them already around the $5 mark on TCG Player, and we have more listed that I'm pretty sure are going to sell because I mean the internet is just out of these. Now of course there are a ton of these cards out of there, and again this card, it does not see an insane amount of play. So let me pull it up on EDHREC. EDHREC is going to be your go-to resource for cards that see play in Commander. And as you can tell, a whopping 53 decks. This does not justify the price tag of NULL CHAMBER going up to 8. But it's always the Commander cast has about the exact same effect as something like the Mana Source or Tolarian Community College when they tweet out a card or when they do a video, specifically a video on how good a card is. Then the card price goes up. One of the things that I identify with NULL CHAMBER right off the bat, that this was an education card. This was a, oh geez, I'm out of, let me get this back in here for everyone. It's an education card. You just need to let people know exactly what this card does, and then they'll actually like, hey, that's actually pretty good in my deck. You actually compare it with this other card called Nevermore, and Nevermore sees a ton of play in Commander. It's a very popular card in Commander, 3,265 decks. So the only reason that Null Chamber has this really low few 53 decks that it's in is just because people just did not know it existed. It's kind of got some weird wording. Enchant World is weird. Mirage is an old set. But it was just a matter of time before I knew that someone would open their mouth about this card, and then there would be a buying spree. So congratulations to all those that did invest in Null Chamber with me. I do think of this as the time to start selling them off. Don't play the game of, okay, this could go up to $15, $30. Possibly. I don't know where the reserve list is going to go. The reserve list is pretty crazy right now. It just seems to be across the board. The cards from a reserve list, no matter what they are still going up in value. In fact, there's very few cards under 50 cents that are left in the reserve list. Yeah, look at that. All these cards under 50 cents though. So there's none under 40 cents, and all these cards under 50 cents are just absolutely awful. They're completely unplayable. So it's just people that are picking up the last bit of these copies to for people that want the full sets later on down the road, which is kind of weird because I think that if people are collecting full sets, it'll be the same amount of cards going out of the card pool, whether or not they're reserve list, because it's set specific. So who cares if it was reprinted? People are collecting a set, they're collecting a set. They don't care about the reprint. So, which brings up a pretty good point with even old school cards that are eligible on are not reserve list cards. I think that we're going to see in 2019, 2020, a lot of just older set cards going up in value just because of how old they are. We're coming to a point now with 25 years of Magic where that is a long time for cardboard to be sitting around. So a lot of these cards are just completely gone. I mean, the original printing of these cards don't even exist, as they've had coffee spilled on them. They've been lost in closets. They've been, just thrown out. And yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity with still old cards. You can see that any card with even any sort of small play is now around at least $1.50 to $2 mark there. It's really hard to really go down this list of cards, reserve list cards, to see any of them that have any sort of EDH play at all. In fact, that's always a challenge to all my subscribers to find a card. If there is a card that even at this point can remotely see play, and this is one I still kind of do like, is this Infernal Denizen. Infernal Denizen is a 5/7 for 8 mana, and you have to, during your upkeep, you have to sacrifice 2 swamps if you can't tap it, and target opponent can gain control of a creature you control. What was cool about this is why I did invest in some Infernal Denizens, because it does work with the cards that can copy activated abilities. So the Necrotic Ooze and the Marsil both can actually utilize the Infernal Denizen, but it was kind of a weak little ability even for activated abilities. Just gaining control of a creature is all. But if you can copy the activated abilities, you don't have to get this bad during your upkeep, do something thing. So even these type of cards have the potential of seeing play. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Fairy Noble somehow, somewhere could be in some sort of fairy tribal, and unfortunately fairies move to blue-black. You never know if Wizards does decide to go back to like blue-green fairies and maybe be like, oh, Fairy Noble gives them +0/+1, blah, blah, blah. I highly, highly doubt that though. So anyway, this is my little update of kind of where we're at in the finance. I know I do these usually for Market Monday type stuff, but I thought I'd get on and do a YouTube video about the Null Chamber and whatnot. So one last little topic I want to talk about is we're going right now into Commander 2018 spoilers. So if you have any cards that you are worried about being reprinted, you need to sell them immediately. Unfortunately, I checked Card Kingdom. A lot of the cards that I was going to buy list to them, they've already dropped the price of them. Cards like Grave Pack, cards like Sidisi Undead Vizier, Phyrexian Arena, Cyclonic Rift, Vandal Blast. There are quite a few, and this is a rule of thumb. I've talked about this in Market Monday before. One thing I like to do is like to go over here and go over to cards, most cards played by color, and we'll just pull up green, for example. And if there's a card that hasn't been reprinted in the last 2 years, that means the eligibility for a reprint is insanely high. We're even starting to get here for Birds of Paradise ready for a reprint. Sylvan Library, probably not in a Commander deck. Vendor Zendikar might actually be ripe for another reprint. It's now past that little threshold of 2 years. It seems that out of all the formats that are regulated with reprints more than any, it's EDH. So you can see now, look at the most played cards. They've all had relatively recent reprints. Oracle of Moldiah, I would put on the short list for a card that will see a reprint in a set coming up. There's got to be an Oracle in one of these master sets, or I know they've quote unquote said that they've stopped the master printings. I highly doubt that. Worldly Tutor is a card I could definitely see in a Commander box set. They've done traditional cards like this, and this is a card that just gets slammed with the reprint. It goes from like a $17 card to a $4 card. So if you have any of these lying around, that might be a card that you should get rid of. See, we saw Sky Shroud Claim in Battle Bond. There are very, very few cards that are even left. Court of Calling is even getting close to that reprint. Exploration, I did get rid of all my Explorations because this is another card that has a $25 price tag that could easily be reprinted in a box set. And even Zendikar's Resurgence, the problem with EDH2 is they get in like this loop of cards that they reprint over and over and over. And if this card does not see reprint though, this card's going to go crazy. So keep your eyes out on Zendikar Resurgence. So that's just my little update, kind of midweek market update for what you should be looking out for. When a card like Null Chamber does spike this sort of value, sell, 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 sell. I'm getting rid of mine right now. I'm going to slowly but surely sell away my copies of Null Chamber, and then instead of worrying about them going up, I think a even more realistic scenario is they do come back down to earth, and I lose out on that potential of selling them off for the $7 to $9 mark. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it's kind of a short, sweet video. I'm going to be doing some arena streaming. That's why I'm just doing a quick little video today on twitch.tv/roguedeckbuilder. So if you're interested in watching me stream some arena, come over to Twitch. I think that's where I'll be doing live streams, gameplay live streams. I'll still be doing live streams, community-oriented or just personality-oriented here on YouTube. But for gameplay, I'm going to go over to Twitch for that, as it just seems to make more sense for gameplay than YouTube does. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.